Okay, this lecture is on drawing with the brush tool. Now another tool that you have available to you other than the pen tool is the brush tool. You can go ahead and select the brush tool here in the menu bar. Again, I would make it a no fill, and I would make sure that your outline is a certain color that you want. And also you can change the stroke and the type of line that you want. And you can also select the type of tip that you want. We're just going to go ahead and leave these settings as they are. And we can go ahead and draw with the brush tool. I'm just going to go ahead and make a form, something like a cloud. And as I'm coming to the end, because we don't have an indicator like on the pen tool that has a little circle next to it, what we want to do is make sure we hold down the Alt key, and then we will get that little indicator. See that little circle next to the brush tool? And as we're holding down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac, we just release it and it'll connect it for us. So if we zoom into it, it'll be connected here. I'm going to go ahead and select it so that you can see. And you'll notice that it makes that connection. Now it's not a very smooth one. We'd have to go in here and tweak it, but you get the idea. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and draw another one so that you can see what it's like when you don't connect it and how you have to use the pen tool and other modifier keys to go ahead and make that connection. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And we can go ahead and click, and I'm just going to make a wavy hill. Okay. Now again, in Illustrator, when you're going to draw, you don't just want to leave this as a line. That's not the way that we draw in Illustrator. In Illustrator, we want everything to be a solid shape. So we're going to go ahead and grab our pen tool. We're going to use the pen tool to connect the outer points. So again, we're going to zoom in here just so that you can see this. With the pen tool, we're going to wait for that slanted line there that we see next to it. We're going to click on that anchor point, and I'm just going to come bring it down here and bring it back over this way. Okay, and if that line is crooked, again, remember you can grab your direct selection tool and you can modify it. So this functions very similar to the pen tool in that you can create paths with it and you can draw objects with it, but it's a little bit smoother. So if there's something that you can more easily do with the brush tool, then you should do it with the brush tool as opposed to the pen tool. But for more geometric things that are straight, especially, the pen tool is essential. And then the editing tools you're going to need no matter what. Okay, so this is again the brush tool. You can double click on it and you can change the smoothness. If you increase the smoothness, then when you draw a line, even if your hand is really shaky and bumpy, the smoothness, it kind of straightens out your line if you notice that. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click that and return it back to its original. Okay. Now again, the key to using this brush tool is that if you're going to draw, say you're going to draw a blob, to come around is that even if you come around like this, and even though it may look closed, it's still not a closed path unless you held down the Alt key, and in this case we didn't. So we're going to zoom in here. If I grab this, you can see where it's pulled apart, and we should always try to get rid of those kinks. So one way that you can do it again is to just go ahead and grab your pen tool and click, wait for that slanted line to indicate that we're clicking on it and continuing from that path. And then you want to go and look for that last point, which when you see that little circle next to it, you can go ahead and click it. Okay. And that looks like it closed the path. Yep, it closed the path. Now another way, I'm just going to go ahead and undo that so that you can see it's back open. There's not that connecting line right in that middle. I'm going to separate these a little bit more so that you can kind of see how they're working. Give me a second. Okay, there, so you can see how they're separated. I'm going to click on this last point, and I'm going to hold down Shift and select on this other point, and that way it's selecting both points. I know they're selected because they're filled in, as opposed to this one that is not filled in. And then what I can do is I can join the two anchor points, and to join them we go here and we hit Connect Selected Endpoints. You can do that, and it kind of fills in the gaps. And again, if you have excess points that you don't need, you can always go to your pen tool and the minus point, and you can go ahead and click here. And you'll notice that even if you have, even if you're not on this minus tool, even if you're on the pen tool, and you go over to this thing, it'll automatically, when it hits a point, if you're selected over, it'll automatically convert itself into a minus point. Okay, similarly, if you click over it where there's not a point with your pen tool, it'll give you a little plus indicator as we see there, and that means that you can add a point, and then that way you can control it if you needed to. Okay, so the brush tool is just a little smoother when you're doing kind of more organic shapes, but it probably shouldn't be used again to make straight like a table or something. It would be a little awkward to draw a straight table, as you can see. Now there's also the pencil tool. We're going to go ahead and click over here, and if we look at the pencil tool, it's very similar. It allows you to make thinner lines though, even though this is a 1 point and this is a 1 point. This is using a different tip here, but this one usually allows you to make a thinner line. It also allows you to have more control over your line. So if you do like a really shaky line, it pretty much stays pretty true to it unless you go in here and double click, and you can change again the settings to make it smoother or whatnot. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to show you another tool that's in here. This is called the Smooth tool. Say that you do have something really jumpy like this. I'm going to zoom in, and you don't want all that jumpiness. You can use the Smooth tool to kind of smooth out some of these points. See how it just changed that point there? I'm going to go ahead. See how it's smoothing it out? So sometimes you might end up with a lot of points that you don't need, and you can kind of smooth out a line. Okay, this isn't particularly helpful for people who have a kind of a jumpy line, or if you've added too many points, you might be able to go and get rid of some of these by smoothing out the line. Okay, and then you have the Path Eraser tool, and with the Path Eraser tool is you can delete parts of a line like this. Oops. Okay. Again, when you want to delete anything, you can either use that, or if you just want to delete a whole section, you can take that out by hitting the delete key. Another thing while we're in here in the paths to keep in mind is that you can go to a path, and I'm going to grab the direct select, and I can click on any one of these points, and I'm going to zoom in so that you can see I'm selected on this point here. You can also cut a path. So right now I just select that and I cut it, and I know that because I see how when I select it, it only selects this part of it now. I can actually grab it with my other tool, and I just split it apart. So if anytime you need to cut something apart, you can do it this way. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. I'm going to go ahead and select all of this. I just scrolled across it. You can do that and select all of this, and I can hit delete, and it'll delete everything. One little tip is if you don't want to delete everything, you just want to hang on to one of these objects, but scrolling is the easiest way to highlight. You can also hold down Shift and click on the object you don't want to take with you, and it'll unselect that one, so that when you hit delete, it's still there. Okay. Lastly, if you select an object, you always have the option to change its stroke. Okay. Change its line type. Okay, although we won't be drawing with, we'll be using line when we draw, but we won't be leaving an outer line on them. We'll talk about that later. Different line qualities. We won't be using these. I just want you to know that they're available to you. And then you can change the opacity. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring that back to 100. Now you can change the fill color. All right, you can do it there, or you can do it over here. Oops, the fill color, sorry. There we go, the fill color, or you can change the outline. Okay. This concludes your lesson on the brush tool and the pencil tool. If you have any questions, please let me know. iled@hawaii.edu or 808-343-9565.